This is the Horror Movie Show on hmpod.com, hosted by Jerry and Mark, your one-stop shop for all horrible movie reviews. From the latest blockbusters and independent films to classics, let Mark and Jerry convince you the world is a dangerous place, though often good for a laugh. Now come and listen to the Horror Movie Show, if you dare.
Hey there, folks. Jerry here.
And Mark.
Bringing you another episode of the Horror Movie Show on hmpod.com, also on iTunes, and happily with The Crypt.
The Crypt.
The Crypt, Eli Roth's great new app on iTunes.
And hopefully soon for Android.
Yes, so they say, so they say. So we've got a special show today. We're going to be talking about movies that were produced or art directed by Michael Gross. Before we get into that, can I tell you a little bit about the man?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, who is
and
he?
who is he?
Who is he? All right. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. He's a Facebook friend of mine. I can tell you that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Then it's well worth the
absolutely
the show.
I'm going to start doing a show about every single one of my Facebook friends. Got about 1,000 people there.
I'm horrified just hearing that.
It's going to be difficult doing some of them because a lot of them, the only
thing
they've done is Facebook. Yeah. We're going to begin, though, with one movie which I thought was an extraordinarily well done movie, a true story from 2013 titled 3096 Days. It's a German or Austrian movie directed by Sherry Horman, written by Ruth Thoma, based on the autobiography by Natasha Kampusch. It stars Antonio Campbell Hughes as Natasha, Thor Lindhart as Wolfgang Pricklepil, and Amelia Pidgeon also plays young Natasha. Mm-hmm. This is a true story based on Natasha Kampusch's ordeal of 11 years? No, more like 8 years. 8 years, I think it was.
3,096 days.
96 days. Somebody do the math. She was kidnapped when she was about 8 years old.
Yeah.
Just grabbed, thrown into the back of a van as she was on her way to school, and vanished. And it turns out that when she was finally released years and years later...
Or escaped.
Yes, that's right. Yes, she when she escaped, that this guy, Wolfgang, was caught and... well, that is, he killed himself, but his house was examined and eventually destroyed, bulldozed, and...
Was it?
Yeah, completely destroyed. Well, who the hell wants to live in...
Hey, it's a nice little room.
Yeah, a nice little secret room in the basement. So it is just the nightmare of every parent who's had a child go missing, that it's one thing if they were killed. It's another if they're still alive and being tortured.
They wouldn't know that. But if you don't have a body,
yes,
then there's that unknown
it's just awful. So the parents, who are minor characters in this really is almost a two-person show.
It could have been a play.
It could easily be a play. It is an autobiography.
Yeah.
But Natasha has a little TV. No, she has a radio. So she's, educated. In fact, she did keep the radio on to the educational channel, the sort of PBS.
She had a dictionary in there and a few other things. He brought her stuff.
Yeah, he fully expected that she would simply fall in love with him and the two of them would live like this forever and ever. And he got confident enough that he would take her out on trips. He would take her on shopping trips.
And skiing trips.
And even a skiing trip at one point. That's where we come in. And she has a chance when she goes into the little chalet toilet to have a pee, and another woman comes in and she desperately pleads with this woman to help her. And, of course, it turns out that the woman is a tourist and doesn't speak the same language, so it's just useless. Oh, it's just one almost escape after another. I thought it was a marvelous movie. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, it's a German movie, but it's not...
Austrian.
No, it's German.
It is German? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's set in Austria.
It's about an Austrian girl.
True Austrian story.
And it's not subtitled, it's in English, but all the written language all around is all in German.
Yes.
So it's like, I was kind of wondering, why is this an English movie?
And they have an English actress playing Natasha.
Yeah. But really well done. Very creepy.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like she was being tortured all the time.
No, and
majority
not specifically tortured
No.
either, but kept in captivity. He'd hit her, and he would sexually abuse her. But it's not like, he started off raping a child and then carried it on for 8 years.
No.
He wanted more than that. He wanted a full, well-rounded, loving relationship. And of course...
Yeah, which is really strange because he had the opportunities in real life.
Yeah.
For some reason, he couldn't get himself to try to date normal women. Instead, he had to have control.
Yeah.
You must obey me. You must obey me. You must... And he just repeated that endlessly over a little intercom that he had set up. Yeah. And I mean, his mother and his grandmother had come in to visit him all the time. Mm-hmm. They kind of were wondering about his sexual preference because he never dated.
Is he not gay?
Yeah, and he would have them over for barbecues and, like everybody thought he was a normal guy,
and
a recluse.
Under the garage, there's a girl in captivity.
Yeah. And he picked her purposefully. It wasn't just a random act.
No.
He saw her on the street with her mother.
Yeah.
And her mother, I guess, was being a little bit strict with her.
Right.
So he made parallels with his mother.
Right.
And then he decided to sort of stalk her out. And when he had the opportunity, he nabbed her.
Oh, he's very, very twisted. Like I think most psychos, he's able to function at a very high level. He's intelligent, although not super intelligent. He's no Hannibal Lecter.
No.
But he's bright enough that he got away with this. The cops even show up at one point looking for this missing girl, and he's got a white panel van, which is, of course, the van that
he used,
was seen by another little girl.
Unfortunately, not an uncommon van.
Yeah, and he manages to chat his way out of the cops' clutches, and...
It helped that his mother and his grandmother were visiting at the time.
Yeah.
So the cops said, well, how could she be here? There's his mother and his grandmother.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a horrible series of good luck for him, bad luck for Natasha. She is so in the thrall of Stockholm Syndrome. She was so young when she is kidnapped by this guy, she doesn't really know a hell of a lot else.
Yeah.
This becomes her life, and she has to be good at it in order to survive and not get beaten.
The fact that he instilled obey me, that when she was out in public, she couldn't speak out. She contemplating it, but she just couldn't do it.
No. And she was on that ski slope. She could easily have skied away from him. She could have...
She wasn't a good skier, though.
Well, no, that's true. Well, she'd been spending most of her time in the garage. What I was thinking was, there she is in public. There's other people skiing past, using the toilet, whatever. You pop your skis off. Well, they're already off. You start smashing things. Start smashing windows. Start hitting people. Just start lashing out. Just make a scene. The authorities will grab you, and you just start hitting them too. You just keep thrashing and hitting until they've taken you far away from that dude and you're out of his clutches. And then, she could have been free. But this kind of thinking has been beaten out of her.
Yeah.
She just can't think that way.
No, she doesn't think that way at all.
She even loves him to an extent. There's tenderness between them.
Yes.
And that's the most disturbing thing of all, that he does win to a great extent.
Yeah.
He does get what he wants to a great extent.
Yeah, it's a surprise to him when she actually gets away from him.
When she does leave him,
Yeah, then,
Yeah, heartbroken.
Very interesting movie again.
Yeah.
Well worth seeing, but nothing that I would watch over and over again.
No, it's rather depressing. She gets away, and I must say that the biggest downer for me in the whole movie was that her mom and dad, when she's reunited with her parents at the end of the movie, everybody is just in shock, and her parents have probably just long decided that she must be dead, and seeing her again, I wouldn't say it was disappointment, but it's sort of this bland feeling of, whatever, and what have we got back? Like, this isn't the 8-year-old daughter that we lost. Who is this person? Who have we got back from this monster?
Well, I didn't really want to think about that too much. I mean, I thought they were happy to see her.
Oh, the mum is, but it's so quiet. It's so
well, that
downplayed.
Might be the German way, Austrian way.
Austrian way, yeah. Yeah, it would have been a different movie if it was Australia.
Our American...
Hello, Cobber. Ah, glad to see ya.
Yeah.
Where you been keeping yourself? Now that we talked about that happy-go-lucky movie, let's get on to some more interesting, upbeat movies. My pal Michael Gross was the art director at the National Lampoon magazine in its glory days.
Mm-hmm.
That's the early to mid-'70s. And the magazine always looked good. It won practically every award that is handed out to magazines for graphic design.
Didn't this come out of a college, Harvard or something like that? Or
The Harvard Lampoon was the template, and several of the editors did work for the Harvard Lampoon. And then they got together with a money man and decided, what the hell, let's launch a magazine. Michael Gross wasn't there for the first few issues. It looked like crap. It wasn't doing very well. Michael Gross was pulled in, and the next thing you know, the magazine is
doing well.
Well, super well. It was the best magazine ever, in my opinion. Anyway, so he'd been pulled into several other things after leaving National Lampoon. He, for example, was involved with the old SCTV comedy series.
Oh, was he? Is that why he knows all these guys?
That's right. Well, he knew Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and
John Candy.
Yeah, he knew these guys from SCTV TV and also the National Lampoon Radio Hour. So he had an in with all the...
Why so many Canadians, though?
There was a Second City branch in Toronto, just as there was Second City had started in Chicago, both being like the second cities of their countries.
Oh, true.
Right? But anyway, he was doing art for SCTV back around 81, and then he went out to Hollywood. That was his first experience in video, film, whatever. But then he went out to Hollywood after he and a partner had formed their own graphic design company. But Michael took his family out to Hollywood, and within, I think he told me, 3 weeks, he had got a job on Heavy Metal. And he essentially art directed the movie Heavy Metal. So he was coordinating with artists that were already in there, and he was just overseeing the movie. And after a while...
It was a Canadian production.
It was made in Montreal, I believe.
So he went to Hollywood, and he got a picture on a Montreal movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I'm pretty sure that the animation for Heavy Metal was being produced by different groups in different places.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so, it was. Definitely different styles all through it.
Yeah. I can't get into too much detail. I interviewed Michael recently, but I know he started off as pretty much the art director on Heavy Metal and wound up being the producer, essentially. Now, in that, we see a lot of Canadian actors, but so many...
Mostly from SCTV.
And National Lampoon. Doing voices in Heavy Metal. You have John Candy, Eugene Levy, Joe Flaherty, Harold Ramis, John Vernon, Canadian actor who played the principal.
In
Dean
Animal
Wormer.
House.
Dean Wormer in Animal House, yeah. Roger Bumpass, who was a comedian for the Lampoon. Douglas Kenny, who, along with Harold Ramis and Chris Miller, wrote Animal House for Lampoon. Alice Playton, August Schellenberg, he's a fine old actor I interviewed many years ago. Richard Romanus, a Canadian actor. Jackie Burroughs, a Canadian actress. Al Waxman. And I noticed Glynis Wooten Gross, who is Michael's wife. She contributed voices as well. So that's just a tiny part of who does voices, but I love the fact that you just see the beginnings of Ghostbusters and Animal House, of course.
Yeah.
Now, Animal House was already out by this time. Animal House, I think, came out in 76, 77, around there. But Heavy Metal was a magazine that had been purchased by 21st Century Communications, the company that owned National Lampoon.
It was based on a magazine out of France.
That's
called
right.
Metal Hurlant.
Yes, that's right. So they changed.
I've got all the originals.
Do you? Yeah?
Yeah, I've got the whole original run of Heavy Metal.
Yeah, good magazine. I enjoyed it. Yeah, sort of artists ranging from Mobius to,
all sorts of
a
lot of Europeans that never were known before the
not here.
You're not here.
Not in North America.
Not in North America. And they have a huge comic and graphic novel industry back in
huge
Europe.
tradition. Yeah.
It's just here everyone thinks it's all for kids, but for there it's for the adults.
Yeah.
Same with Japan and the Asian markets.
Indeed.
they're all for adults.
Right.
A lot of them, anyway.
Yeah, well, yes, if they're adult-oriented. So, I'm only picking 4 movies that Michael worked on, simply because most of what he did isn't really, by any stretch of the imagination, fit into horror. But I'm going to mention Twins, his 1988 movie, directed by Ivan Reitman, written by 4 different writers. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as Julius Benedict, Danny DeVito, always funny, as his twin, Vincent. The lovely Kelly Preston as Marnie Mason, Chloe Webb, who was Nancy in Sid and Nancy, playing it rather understated as Linda, and that is Danny DeVito's girlfriend. Trey Wilson plays Beetroot McKinley. A very young David Caruso plays Al Greco, just a little scuzzball.
A little bit part, too.
Bit part, yeah. Hugh O'Brien, a longtime leading man from Hollywood. He plays Granger, one of the 6 fathers of the twins. Maury Chaykin, good Canadian actor there. Jason Reitman, who has become a very good director himself. His father cast him as one of the Granger grandsons in this movie. Jason has done Juno. He's, done a lot of big-name movies. And Heather Graham, who is uncredited in this movie. She plays the young mother to the Benedict twins.
Oh.
Yeah, you see her for a moment at the beginning, and in a still photograph a couple of times, and then an older act plays her as a grandma. I think that's funny. In 1988, was Heather Graham not considered a big noise?
I don't know.
It surprises me, yeah.
The movie was budgeted for $15 million.
Uh-huh.
It made $112 million.
Yeah. No,
they did very well. Now, Schwarzenegger and the director and DeVito, they couldn't pay their salary, so they gave him a percentage of the gross.
Right.
Of the gross.
Yeah.
And Schwarzenegger ended up making $35 million.
Oh, good one.
I'm sure that DeVito and the director also made a nice chunk of it.
Probably not that much, but probably a good...
That was the most he ever made in a movie, Schwarzenegger.
Right.
It was $35 million.
Yeah.
Not bad.
That's pretty good. So just to get the vague reason that I've included this in a podcast about horror movies is that it's Schwarzenegger and DeVito are supposed to be the offspring of a sort of cloning experiment where they've taken this perfect woman played by Heather Graham and sperm from 6 different Supermen.
Yeah.
They've boiled it up and
I don't know
created,
how they did that.
And they've created one...
Okay, here's a cup for all 6 of you.
Yeah, we're going to put it in a paint shaker. And here, drink this. Yeah, and see what happens. What they were aiming for was a super baby along the lines of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
But there was a second baby born right afterwards.
Which really,
and that's DeVito.
It's very funny because it was unexpected.
Yeah,
it's like all these doctors and they couldn't...
dregs.
They couldn't figure out there were 2 of them in there.
Yeah, and DeVito is the little puny dregs of the...
And once again, DeVito plays the same characters. He mostly plays on just about everything.
Yes,
he played on Taxi as well as
Sunny.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He plays the same little
sleazeball.
schmuck. With a heart.
But he's funny. He does. He has more heart in this than he does in Sunny, that's for sure.
And Arnold, who I don't think is very funny.
He's not a good actor.
No, even though this movie made so much money that he was getting comedy scripts thrown at him afterwards.
Right.
I never considered him a great actor. No. And his humor, it's just not funny. DeVito is much funnier.
Oh, of course.
And
he's terrific.
Everybody in this movie is actually much funnier than him. But, he made the most money.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder.
Arnold does manage to play, in his heavy-handed way, he does manage to play with his own persona. First time that he's left his tropical island where he's been raised by scientists and he's in New York and he's looking at a poster of Stallone.
Yeah.
And he's like sneering and
whatever. They like doing that.
And he uses his "I'll be back" line.
Yeah.
I think it's "We'll be back." He's funny now and then, but overall Arnold's style and sense of humor is pretty heavy-handed.
Originally, DeVito and Schwarzenegger were offered a different movie. It was Suburban Commandos.
Okay.
And they decided to do Twins.
Right.
And that pushed Hulk Hogan and Christopher Lloyd out because they were scheduled to do that movie.
Oh, okay.
Christopher Lloyd playing the DeVito character?
Yeah.
I guess one was going to be really muscular and the
Huge.
other one's going to be thin,
Skinny.
not necessarily short.
Skinny and weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a coincidence. Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd both got their big breaks in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right.
Lots of good musicians uncredited in this. Jeff Beck, Terry Bozzio, Tony Hymas, Jill Avery, and Nicolette Larson.
Wow.
But they don't really get a credit except for performing the songs. But they're
well,
big,
in heavy
big
metal,
part. This movie to me is so 80s. The clothing, the way the women are dressed. Everything is so 80s. Even the hoods are like, they're so badass that Schwarzenegger manages to beat them up 3 times, and the other bad guy, the super bad guy, beats him up as well.
Yeah.
These are like the worst loan sharks in the world.
In heavy metal, they had a lot of music as well.
Right.
And you know that the genre heavy metal didn't exist until after that movie?
Oh, yeah.
And that type of music they used?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not all heavy metal either. I mean, there's some Blue Oyster Cult, spacey stuff. So.
No, it isn't all. But the term didn't exist until then.
Okay, now let's get on to the 2 movies that Michael Gross is best known for. Michael C. Gross is what he was calling himself because, of course, there's a TV actor, Michael Gross.
Yes, the Family Ties.
Family Ties, that was it.
That's it.
Michael J. Fox.
And he also did some things in Tremors.
That's right.
Yeah,
yes,
he was
too much.
The rifle-wielding redneck.
He was the survivalist.
Survivalist.
Yeah, not a redneck, survivalist.
With Reba McEntire.
That's
his
right.
wife.
And unfortunately, they started starring him in
the sequels,
and they got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So, Michael Gross was essentially the art director, although he is down as an associate producer, but he tells me he was in charge of all visual aspects for both Ghostbusters movies. Mm-hmm. And he also went on to be a producer for the real Ghostbusters
animation,
the animated Saturday morning animated series,
which started up between the 2 movies. Actually,
it did. Yes, yeah. It went on from 1986 to 1991. Ghostbusters was in 84, and then the sequel was surprisingly not until 1989. So 5 years between them.
Yep.
Now, the first Ghostbusters movie, huge movie. People of a certain age just love that movie the way older people love The Wizard of Oz.
$32 million budget, and it grossed in 1 year.
In 1 year. Its first year.
$240 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
$250 million. That's pretty good. It's directed by Ivan Reitman. Now, I'll give you the credits for both. Both movies, 1 and 2, directed by Ivan Reitman. Both written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, who, of course, are 2 of the Ghostbusters. The first movie, Rick Moranis, is uncredited, but
really?
But they say that he also contributed to the script.
Oh.
Whether that was...
Well, that's because he did a lot of ad-libbing.
Yes, I was going to say, whether it's just his character, Lewis, ad-libbing. Associate producer on Ghostbusters, Michael C. Gross. On Ghostbusters 2, he was an executive producer. But he was more or less in charge of the look of both these movies. And I can't think of anything other than the acting, perhaps, that is more important than the look.
Oh, yeah, the logos.
He invented the logo based on an idea in Dan Aykroyd's first version of the script. And that logo is now, commonplace around the world. Everybody knows the Ghostbusters logo.
Yep.
Michael told me a story that when he was in Africa on a holiday, their guide had a motorcycle helmet or a bike helmet or something, and on it was a Ghostbusters logo. He didn't put it on because he was going to meet Michael Gross. It was just a decoration he'd put on there. But around the world, people know that Ghostbusters logo. Mm. So anyway, Bill Murray plays Dr. Peter Venkman. Dan Aykroyd plays Dr. Raymond Stantz. Harold Ramis plays Dr. Egon Spengler. And I'll give credit to the 4th Ghostbuster, although he's kind of a weasel, and he doesn't show up until halfway through the movie. Ernie Hudson plays Winston Zeddemore, who is the 4th Ghostbuster.
Yeah, he was actually supposed to have a bigger role because Eddie Murphy was supposed to play that part.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
That would have been
But they
interesting.
cut it back down when Eddie bowed out.
Ah, okay. Yeah, him and Aykroyd had already worked together, so yeah, they'd
Well,
be good.
Aykroyd originally wrote the script.
Yes.
And then they brought in Ramis when they didn't like Aykroyd's script as much.
Right.
Originally, it was supposed to be done in the future, and that there was a whole bunch of Ghostbuster places.
Right.
And they were all competing with one another.
Okay.
So it was completely different.
Very different,
And when the producers looked at the script, they said, this is going to cost like $300 million to make.
Can't we just use an old ambulance and an abandoned fire hall?
They brought in Harold Ramis to make it modern day and just tone it down.
Right.
The thing is that every single scene has at least one or two ad-libs in it. So they were adding to the script left, right, and center.
Yeah, I can
that
believe
whole
it.
scene...
These are all very creative people.
Oh,
and all writers.
And comedians. And stand-up comedians, too.
Well, if not stand-up comedians, then, Bill Murray used to at least have a hand in writing his sketches on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And he was a writer for the National Lampoon Radio Hour, which is where Michael Gross would have known him.
Right.
And so on and so on. These guys are all really talented. Other people in that group that people might not realize, Gilda Radner worked for National Lampoon, Chevy Chase, just bags and bags.
That's where
almost the whole generation of comedians who are now, like old men, but they started either at National Lampoon or Second City.
Yeah. John Candy was originally supposed to be playing Lewis. John Belushi was written as,
Lewis,
Peter
the little
Venkman.
guy. Oh, well, let me finish saying who's in it, because then what you're saying will make a bit more sense to me. Sigourney Weaver plays Dana Barrett. She's the love interest to Bill Murray's Venkman character, and also she lives in the Nexus. She lives on the top of Spook Central,
exactly.
as they call it.
Yeah.
A building that was built for communing with ghosts and stuff. Rick Moranis plays little weedy Louis Tully, an accountant, and just as awful as you'd expect an accountant to be. Annie Potts plays Janine, their secretary at the Ghostbusters headquarters, and William Atherton playing yet another in a long line of dickhead reporters and stuff like that.
Called up Reitman at one point and said, "You've killed my career."
Right.
He says, like, everywhere I go, people want to start fights with me because of this character.
But he did the same thing in the first two Die Hard movies. He plays the exact same weaselly, loudmouth, obnoxious, hateful character.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, he's well known but
well hated.
underappreciated as an actor.
Yeah. Now, all those characters are also in Ghostbusters 2 with the addition of Peter McNichol, playing an art historian, Dr. Janos Poha, that Sigourney Weaver's Dana is working for. There's the crux of evil, if you want to put it down to one guy named Vigo, is played by Wilhelm von Homburg, who is a former professional wrestler out of Germany.
Is he?
Cheech Marin has a cameo.
Yeah, just a cameo.
Brian Doyle Murray, who is Bill Murray's brother,
has a
big
cameo.
brother, has a cameo, and Max von Sydow does Vigo's voice, but he's uncredited. And also uncredited, Chloe Webb, which isn't surprising because Ivan Reitman directed her in Twins. She's in, but just barely. And Eugene Levy was supposed to be in, but he was cut from the final scene.
In the second movie.
In Ghostbusters 2. Yeah.
They did a lot of ad-libbing. Rick Moranis, that whole party scene?
Right.
Where he's inviting people in and he's...
I invited him because, he's got a 354.
He's in receivership or something. He ad-libbed that whole scene.
Oh, it's hilarious.
The whole scene was just an ad-lib.
Yeah, he's great.
And I just... And it's one of the funnier scenes.
Yeah, it is. He's such a little accountant. Now, the first movie really took everybody by surprise. It really seemed something fresh and new, the idea of a ghost comedy. And following hot on the heels of this, there were several other ghost comedies. And there had been humorous ghost stories before, but this one was great. It had a little science fiction in the technology they're using. It had a little gothic horror. It had love and romance in it.
It had the schmucks, the politicians.
Yes, that's right.
It had all sorts of people in it.
Yeah. It was a good, well-rounded
I rewatched
movie.
it a couple days ago.
Yep.
And, just about every scene is a little classic gem in it.
Yeah,
it's
very nice.
Especially Bill Murray. He's on his ball.
He is so cool.
Just about every single line he gives is an ad-lib.
Yeah. How somebody can be so goofy and yet still managed to be really cool.
Yeah.
It's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. Whereas in the second movie, it looked like he didn't even want to be there.
It seems to me it's a little forced. It's nowhere near as smooth
and I
a
swear
movie
he
as the
didn't do
first
one ad lib. His character is straight as an arrow.
Yeah.
There was no smarminess.
Right.
There's no, playfulness with the words. Nothing. He just delivered his lines like he was just reading them.
And it's unsatisfactory to me that, by the end of the first movie, he and Sigourney Weaver are getting together.
Romantically.
And then at the beginning of the second movie, and they don't pretend as if 5 years hasn't passed.
Yeah, it says right off the bat, 5 years later.
Does it say? Okay. And Sigourney and Bill are on the outs, but there's no real satisfactory reason why.
Oh, no, they talk about it.
They talk about it, yeah, but they get back together again pretty darn quickly. If it was simmering under the surface,
well,
I know it was all his problem.
Dana's, got tired of Bill Murray's character's childishness.
Right.
So she hooks up
with... being in the limelight. She didn't want to be in
she
the
hooks
limelight.
up with another guy, has a kid, and within 6 months, that guy takes off on her.
Yeah.
It's like... Okay, was that other guy any better?
Starting to think it's her who's got the problem, maybe.
The second one...
It feels a little forced
compared
to the first one.
It's just not as natural and fluid.
Yeah.
It was like they were just reading lines, and that was it.
The Peter MacNicol character, I didn't think matched the Ghostbusters.
Well, see, he created that character himself. Originally, he didn't have an accent, and it was a very straightforward guy. And he created the whole background of the guy coming from that different country, and it created the accent himself. It's just a made-up accent.
I know that, but it's not a very good one.
And he also
it didn't strike me as being a very clever character. I don't know. I could have done without him.
He fleshed it out, and obviously you didn't like what he did. But
no.
I don't know. I mean, he was just a silly little character.
Yeah.
The whole second movie just
I saw the first one in the theater when it was new, so there was a certain spark and originality to it. The second one, being a sequel, unfortunately, most sequels suffer, and the originality, of course, just isn't there. Now, I remember reading at the time that the only reason Bill Murray said he would make the second one was so that the studio would finance his version of The Razor's Edge.
That's right.
Yeah. He wanted to do like a heavy...
drama.
Drama. And it is a heavy drama. Although Murray is very good in that, and the movie failed, which is why the studio didn't want to make it in the first place.
Yeah.
Murray is very good in that.
Yeah, but you can see that he's not happy.
No, he doesn't seem to be enjoying himself at all.
No.
Yeah.
So, obviously, he was having some problems with the studios. They forced him to do this.
Yeah.
He put in the minimal.
Yeah, it feels like it.
He put in his minimal, and just so that he could make a movie that he really wanted to make, and unfortunately, it didn't do well.
It didn't do very well.
And from then on...
Although it's a good movie.
And from then on, he had problems with his movie career, I think.
What do you mean? What?
No, for a while. He's gotten back into stride ever since he's done some really great stuff lately in the last 10 years.
More sort of independent movies.
Yeah, when he got into the smaller roles.
Well, no, you can't say smaller roles.
Well, no, the smaller movies.
Budgeted movies.
Yeah. Well, he also had some little bit pieces in some movies that he did great things in as well.
Yeah, sure.
So
he's worked with directors like Jim Jarmusch and Wes Anderson. His work with Wes Anderson alone is some of the best stuff that is going these days. Rushmore, Moonlight, one where Steve Zissou, where he plays the sort of Jacques Cousteau character.
That's right.
Just hilarious roles that he's playing. But he's the star of that movie.
But the
Undersea World of Steve Zissou, I think it's called.
it was a very well done. I
love Wes Anderson.
I watched that several times in a row. Because I thought it was so interesting.
It is. With the little made-up fish.
Yeah.
The little CGI fish that pop.
So he is getting his dramatic roles as well as his comedic. But he has a way of blending the two as well.
He is these days.
Yeah, which is the best of both worlds. Right. He's just doing a great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're obviously big fans of Bill Murray. He's still cool. He may be an old fart now, but he's still a cool old fart.
Well, we're old farts, too.
Yeah. Read an article recently where Dan Aykroyd was talking about he's got two personal situations. He has Tourette's.
Oh.
And he also has Asperger's syndrome. Mm-hmm. So Asperger's syndrome is one of those things on the scale of autism, usually high functioning, and an obsession with language, but also just obsessions in general, and that can also be the Tourette's. Aykroyd talks about, his obsession with cops.
The Blues Brothers kind of thing.
Yeah. The police car, the fact that he spouts the dragnet.
Yeah.
And playing Elliot Ness and the old. So he sort of channeled these brain oddities into comedy and done well with them, but he wouldn't even be going to that material unless he was obsessed with it to start with, which I think is really interesting. I think a lot of artists are obsessed. Whether they have actual syndromes or not is debatable, but just to be obsessed with something and learn about it and know about it. I've got a copy at home of an oversized paperback that came out after the first year or two of the original Saturday Night Live. And it includes not just bits of scripts, like sketches written out in script form, and lots of photographs behind the scenes and so on, but it also just has a lot of people's notes and candid stuff.
Right.
And there's a very neatly typed sheet of paper reproduced that is from Dan Aykroyd to John Belushi. They did a lot of writing together. They were great partners on that show, and of course afterwards with the Blues Brothers and Neighbors and other stuff. And this list from Aykroyd to Belushi is, you must read every one of these books, and it's just like a list of the most esoteric, technical stuff. Police practices in Baltimore, 1931 to 1947. And it's just like these really dry stuff. And also on the page is this hideous Dr. Roboto or something, which eventually made it onto a Saturday Night Live sketch. And he's got like big claws, big metal claws for hands. And it's just, this is a doctor you want to go see, a guy with great clamping metal hands. I don't know. I've always liked Aykroyd. And the fact he's Canadian, I've always liked that too.
It's interesting.
Another proud Canadian.
The way he writes, when you look at the first Ghostbusters movie, it's really a lot of patting on the back. We're great, Oh, let's put the real beady music in the background, and the whole city is chanting Ghostbusters.
That's right.
He just loves to be in the limelight where there's a big crowd.
Yeah.
He did it in Blues Brothers as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just the whole city of Chicago was in the background chanting them on and
playing heroes.
He just loves that.
He's gone on to be a fairly serious actor in everything from bit parts in hoarding parts in Driving Miss Daisy to a lot of other movies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he does his real dramatic
He does
pieces.
straight jobs now and then. Yeah. According to my pal Michael, he says there is no way there will be a third Ghostbusters movie.
There has already been a Ghostbuster 3. I don't know if they made it, but you look on IMDb, there's a Ghostbuster 3 sitting there.
Well, there may be talk, and Aykroyd supposedly has worked on a script, but Bill Murray has said he'd have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And Michael Gross, who was a producer on both movies, inside word from him is that this is just rumor, that there will not be a third movie. So if anybody is waiting for a true...
Maybe they'll take Aykroyd's original screenplay
put it in the future
where there's a whole bunch of Ghostbusters.
As much as I like Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, they're pretty tubby right now. You'd really have to change their characters.
But they could actually put it into the future.
That
would work.
All new.
Now they could have the CGI, they could do it,
Right.
So it would be interesting.
I can see somebody remaking Ghostbusters any day now, because that seems to be what's happening, is remaking movies from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, even if they don't need it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'll just mention a couple of other things. Michael told me that the worst movie, as far as his own personal experience, the movie that was most awful to make was Legal Eagles in 1986.
Really? It did very well.
Robert Redford
yeah.
and Daryl Hannah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he said that was a nightmare. He did a movie called Big Shots in 1987. He did Kindergarten Cop. He was a producer on Kindergarten Cop.
Right.
It's not a tumor!
That's his best line.
Yeah, it is. That's the line I remember from Kindergarten Cop. So obviously he liked working with Schwarzenegger. He said that Arnold was a great guy. Very professional, fun to work with.
Mm-hmm.
He also worked on Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
Oh, that was a stinker.
That's a stinker, yeah. That's Stallone. So he's worked with both the big muscle men.
Yeah.
Then he was a producer on Beethoven, which was a huge movie and spawned not just several sequels, but a one-season TV series. They made 13 episodes of Beethoven for TV. And he was producer on Beethoven's Second, the first sequel.
Right.
First in 1992, the sequel in 1993. Inspector Gadget Saves Christmas, which I have not seen.
Was that an animation?
I'm assuming that was an animated, made-for-TV thing. And another movie that he said was great fun to work on, Dave.
Oh, that's with
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline, yeah.
Yeah, and Sigourney Weaver again.
Yeah, they were the president.
That's right. It's a look-alike for the president.
Yeah.
And the look-alike, Dave, gets in there, and he, in fact, is a nice guy and starts to improve things.
Doesn't the president get kidnapped or offed or something?
No,
and he has to take his place?
He's out of the picture for
sick.
some reason. The president must be seen, so they hired Dave, the look-alike. And he's just so much nicer. He's a kinder, gentler, better human being.
Version of the president.
His wife, Sigourney Weaver, the first lady, falls in love with Dave. And when the president comes back and he's all business and a hard ass and a crooked son of a bitch,
they get rid of him, don't they?
I don't know. Honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember the ending. But yes, the CIA should have killed him and put Dave in. Yeah, I don't think that's what happens, though.
I think that's what happens.
Well, I'd have to watch it again. Anyway, Michael Gross, he wasn't in movies for very long, just a few years, but he was really...
Well, for a decade or so.
Yeah, and really worked on some huge movies. Heavy Metal is just like one of the great cult movies of all time. That is a classic midnight movie.
Of course. I love the original stories from Heavy Metal magazine.
Right.
And when they brought out the movie, well, they did all sorts of adult things that they could never do.
Right.
They were banned.
There's a lot of nudity.
Yeah, it was a new thing having nudity in cartoons.
In North America,
in North
perhaps.
America,
yes. Yeah.
And so they had a lot of censor problems and things like that. And then they got all those bands together to donate songs. Well, not donate, but it was one of the reasons it took so long to get out on DVD and actually just video.
Right.
Was because they had to secure the rights again to the music.
Right.
And I guess some of the bands were giving them problems. They wanted.
Well, it wouldn't be the bands; it would be
whoever owned the rights.
The record companies are always
the rights to
dickheads.
And
and
that was
music publishers and God knows who else. But generally, the trouble comes from the accountants, not the artists per se.
And it's always fun to watch every once in a while.
I hadn't seen it in quite a few years, and because I was interviewing him, I'm going to be putting written interview up on the Crypt in the near future. I watched all these movies and thought we could talk about them today. Heavy Metal, Twins, and the two Ghostbusters movies, and I'd forgotten how much I liked Heavy Metal. John Candy, Harold Ramis, they're so funny. So many of those comedians.
Joe Flaherty's in it,
great.
and Eugene Levy.
Love
there's
it.
all sorts.
Yeah, it really is.
And all different artists, too. The Mobius is in there. There's the guy that did Den, Richard Corbin.
Right.
And they all classic.
And even though every now and then you see like a little jerky movement or a little bit of paint that should have been put in and was forgotten, but overall, the quality of the animation is way better than most of what I see
Well, it was
today.
supposed to be nothing like Disney, but better.
Right. I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
They wanted to stay away from the...
If there's anything cute in it, it's killed or chewed up or it turns into a monster.
There's a lot of rotoscoping and things like that as well. But then
it reminded me more of Bakshi than Disney's.
Yeah, that's it. But... Again, each segment was done by a different group of people, so the animation styles vary quite drastically.
Right. And there is a sort of through line of this hateful green sphere that is involved, even if it's only at the beginning and the end.
That's where they changed the plot lines from the comics because originally they didn't have anything to do with one another. And
Mobius, that was a long running series in Heavy Metal. That was ongoing.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And very creative, and I'm proud to say it's a Canadian movie.
It is, yeah. Twins, would you recommend that to people?
Again, I just watched it, and originally, before I watched it again, I was thinking that's just a silly movie, but it's not a bad movie at all.
It's a fun little movie.
Yeah, it's nothing serious. Schwarzenegger is probably the weakest link in the whole thing, but other than that, it was tastefully done.
Yeah. And the contrast between Schwarzenegger and DeVito is hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, just right off the bat, you've got one of the best visual jokes going.
Very tame, considering what it could have been.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It could have been more like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Kind of DeVito.
You get a vibe of that. I mean, DeVito makes his living by getting a phone call from the David Caruso character. Hey, there's a nice new Cadillac has just parked itself on the 3rd floor of my garage. Come and steal it.
Yeah.
And then they sell it for peanuts and divvy up the money.
Yeah.
And that's how DeVito makes the money that he wastes on gambling. Because he's in trouble with the mob, small-time bookmaker mob, because he owes them money and he can never stay ahead.
Yeah.
But as silly as the movie is, it's very enjoyable. I was glad to see it again.
There is sort of a sinister thing happening here in that why were they separated at birth?
Right.
Why did the mother not know that they survived?
Right.
They told her that they were dead. Everybody thought
one was dead. She didn't know she'd even had twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, what the heck were they doing there?
Well, you know, the whole science fiction aspect of twins sort of falls apart if you look at it too closely.
Yeah. And plus, you know, he's being raised on this island in the middle of the Pacific somewhere.
Yeah.
Actually, he gives the coordinates.
Yes.
And somebody actually looked at that place.
Oh, yeah?
And there is actually a coral reef island.
A little island there.
Little island
Yeah.
where they say it is.
So I don't need to ask, but I will anyway, because this is like radio. You're a fan of Ghostbusters.
I love the first Ghostbusters.
Right.
The second one, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason it was just okay is because Bill Murray just phoned it in.
Yeah. He's so vital in the first one, and it's like everybody is just sort of beat in the second one.
Yeah. If it wasn't for that, everyone else did a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But,
and the second one, to me, just wasn't different enough.
Spontaneity.
They should have gone away from Dana. They were already broken up. I say, go with Lewis. Make Lewis the focal point or something, But back to Sigourney Weaver, who, as good an actress as she is, has never struck me as much of a love interest because she's just too big and scary. I don't know. All right, folks. Well, we're going to call it quits and wrap up this episode of the Horror Movie Show on hmpod.com. We'll be back next week with more new movies to talk about and some old stuff.